They say heroes wear uniforms, medals, or badges, but sometimes the greatest hero is the one no one ever noticed. In the small town of Mergar, people still whisper about a man who changed countless lives, quietly, without ever wanting credit. His name was Arif Qureshi, and his story was never told. Until now. What made a simple post office clerk become the town's most mysterious savior? This is the untold story of the Khamosh Sipahi, the silent soldier. For over 30 years, Arif Qureshi walked the same narrow street every morning. White shirt, brown bag, calm smile. To everyone, he was just the quiet postman, never late, never loud, always helping others with small acts of kindness. But behind that calm smile, there was something strange. Every night, long after his shift ended, people saw him walking toward the old railway line, carrying an old lantern. No one knew why, and no one ever asked until one winter evening, when everything changed. That night, a massive explosion shook the north end of Mergar. The old train warehouse caught fire, flames rising into the dark sky. Firefighters were nowhere near. The roads were blocked. But witnesses remember one man running toward the fire, not away from it. Later, when the fire was finally put out, people found 6 workers alive, unconscious but safe, near the warehouse's back exit. And next to them, Arif Qureshi's lantern. He wasn't seen again for 2 days. When he returned, his hands were burned, his clothes torn. He said nothing, just smiled and went back to work the next morning. But that was only the beginning. Months later, a young boy named Samir, the son of a local tailor, came to the post office with a strange envelope. It was addressed to the family of a forgotten soldier. He said he found it hidden behind an old drawer at Arif's desk. Curious, the manager opened it. Inside was a list of names, people from the town who had lost family members during the 1971 war. Each name had a small mark next to it, and handwritten notes like paid in full, education covered, medical support sent. At the bottom of the page, a single line was written in ink. If I couldn't fight on the border, I'll fight for the people who lost everything. That's when people realized Arif wasn't just delivering letters. He'd been secretly helping the families of forgotten soldiers for decades. No one could figure out how he managed it. He lived in a one-room house, had no car, no expensive belongings. But every year, he somehow paid tuition fees, hospital bills, and arranged food supplies for dozens of families, quietly, without ever attaching his name. Rumors began to spread. Some said he had inherited hidden money. Others whispered that he found something valuable during the war and decided to use it for good. But the truth was far more human and heartbreaking. A retired officer came forward one day. He said Arif's elder brother, Captain Imran Qureshi, had died in the 1971 war. Before his death, he had sent a letter saying, "If I don't return, promise me one thing. Don't let my sacrifice die with me." And Arif kept that promise. It wasn't until Arif passed away in 2012 that the full truth came to light. When townspeople entered his small home to arrange his belongings, they found dozens of files stacked neatly, each labeled with a name and a date. Inside were receipts, letters, and thank you notes, never sent. In one old trunk, they found hundreds of photos of children he had helped, kids now grown up, doctors, teachers, soldiers. Every single one had benefited from his quiet generosity. No media, no fame, no recognition, just quiet, pure humanity. He had lived like a nobody, but left behind the heart of a legend. Today his grave lies at the edge of the old cemetery, marked only by a small stone. No big monument, no fancy title, just one line engraved, Khamosh Sipahi, the silent soldier. But every year on the same day, someone leaves a small lantern on his grave. No one knows who. Maybe it's one of the lives he saved. Maybe it's someone who still remembers. All we know is that the legend of Mergar's Khamosh Sipahi still lives. Not in history books, but in the quiet hearts he touched. A few months after Arif's funeral, locals began to notice something strange. Every Friday before sunrise, an unknown man visited his grave. Tall, wearing an old army jacket, face always covered. He never spoke to anyone, just stood there for a few minutes, left a white rose, and disappeared. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said he was one of the men Arif had saved from the warehouse fire. Others believed he was a fellow soldier, Maybe even someone from his brother's lost battalion. No one ever found out. But one thing was clear. The Khamosh Sipahi wasn't forgotten. Years later, a young journalist named Sana Adil came to Mirgar to write an article on unsung heroes. She thought it would be a small piece, one column, maybe a few paragraphs. But when she started interviewing people, she realized this story ran deeper than she'd ever imagined. Old villagers shared memories of Arif helping them in crises, paying hospital bills and disappearing before they could thank him. Children spoke about scholarships arriving from nowhere. Even the local school principal revealed that Arif had been secretly funding their morning meals for years. Sana knew this wasn't just a story. It was a revelation. She decided to uncover everything. While visiting the post office where Arif had worked, Sana asked to see his old desk. The drawers were empty, except for one rusted key taped under the tabletop. It matched the number 117, the old locker in the basement, unused for decades. When she opened it, she found a small wooden box. Inside, dozens of envelopes, each marked with a family name and a note. "Do not deliver until after I'm gone." They were filled with handwritten letters of gratitude, apologies, and promises Arif never got to send. At the bottom of the box was one letter addressed to whoever finds this. It read, "If you are reading this, please remind people that kindness doesn't need witnesses. The loudest hearts are often the quietest souls." When Sana's article finally went public, Mirgar changed overnight. People who barely knew Arif now spoke of him with tears in their eyes. A local bakery owner admitted that Arif used to pay for food for widows, anonymously every month. A bus driver revealed Arif had once sold his own bicycle to buy a ticket for a poor student. The article went viral across social media. Thousands shared it with the hashtag Khamosh Sipahi. TV reporters came, cameras rolled, but the story still felt too peaceful, too sacred, for the noise of fame. Arif had built a legacy that couldn't be captured in headlines. It lived in people's hearts. A year later, during repairs at the old post office, workers discovered a small diary behind a loose wall brick. It was Arif's handwriting, faded, careful, and full of reflections. He wrote about his loneliness after losing his brother, about the guilt of surviving, and about his decision to dedicate every day to others. But one page stood out. "If kindness spreads quietly, maybe one day the world will learn to listen to silence." Those words became engraved on a memorial plaque in front of the post office, the same place where he once sorted letters for others, while hiding his own story. Inspired by his story, the local school launched the Khamosh Sipahi Scholarship Fund. Every year, they select 5 students from poor families and fund their education, anonymously, just as Arif would have wanted. Within a few years, the program spread to nearby towns. Postmen across Pakistan started similar initiatives, calling it the Silent Letter Movement. Each envelope carried no sender name, only one small line written in blue ink from a Khamosh Sipahi. His spirit had become a movement. One winter morning, Sana received a package with no return address. Inside was an old photograph, black and white, showing 2 young men in uniform. One was clearly Arif, the other was Captain Imran Qureshi, his brother. On the back of the photo were words written in pencil. He kept his promise. No one knows who sent it. Some believe it came from an old war veteran who finally recognized Arif's name. Others think it was left by the same stranger who still visits his grave. Either way, the message was clear. The bond of brothers had never truly ended. On the 10th anniversary of Arif's death, Mirgar faced a violent thunderstorm, the biggest in years. Electricity went out across the town, but locals swear they saw a faint light glowing in the cemetery. When the storm passed and people went to check, they found a single lantern burning, perfectly dry, untouched by the rain, resting beside Arif's grave. No one could explain how it got there. But the moment spread like wildfire online. People said it was a sign, a reminder that the Khamosh Sipahi was still watching over them. A teenage boy named Hamza, one of the scholarship students, decided to continue Arif's legacy. He started a small YouTube channel called Voices of Silence, sharing stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary good, without expecting fame. Within a year, it reached millions, and at the end of every video, Hamza said one line: "For Arif Uncle, the man who taught us to give without being seen." The legend of Khamosh Sipahi had entered the digital world, inspiring a new generation to believe in quiet kindness. 5 years later, when Sana was preparing to leave Mergar, she received one final letter. No name, no sender, just a simple message inside. You told my story to the world. But remember, I was never special. Everyone has the power to be someone's silent soldier. She smiled, folded the letter, and placed it beside Arif's grave. The wind blew gently, carrying the sound of rustling leaves, as if the Khamosh Sipahi himself was whispering a thank you.